Toyota just put its fiercest rival's battery inside a Toyota, stamped its own badge on the hood, and started selling it. And not some random rival. A Chinese company, Toyota fights head-to-head in showrooms around the world. To a lot of people, this looked like the moment Toyota finally waved the white flag on the electric car race. The company that basically invented the hybrid, admitting it couldn't build a competitive EV on its own. But that's not what happened. What Toyota actually did here might be the smartest move any car maker has made in a decade. Here's what actually happened. The car is called the Toyota BZ3. It's a battery electric sedan built for the Chinese market, and if you saw one parked on the street, you'd never guess there was anything strange about it. Clean lines, that familiar Toyota badge, the same build quality the brand is famous for. But pop it open and look at what's powering it, and the story gets interesting. Because the battery inside that Toyota was designed by BYD. If you don't follow the car world closely, BYD might not mean much to you yet. It's a Chinese company, and it's not some tiny startup. It is the biggest electric vehicle maker on the planet, bigger than Tesla, and it's one of Toyota's direct competitors. And this was no ordinary supplier deal. Toyota walked straight up to a rival that's trying to eat its lunch and said, "We want your battery in our car." To build the BZ3, Toyota set up a joint venture with BYD. BYD called BYD Toyota EV Technology, and brought in FAW Toyota, its longtime Chinese partner, to actually produce and sell the thing. This wasn't a handshake and a logo swap. More than 100 Toyota engineers from design, production, and quality control sat in the same rooms as BYD's engineers and built the car together, from the battery structure to the cooling to the safety systems. The result is a sedan that gets over 600 kilometers of range on a charge, running on BYD's battery and Toyota's electronics. It went into production in 2023, and it's on real roads right now. Now stop and think about how strange that is. This is Toyota. This is the company that spent decades telling the world it did things its own way, that owned its supply chain, that didn't need anyone. The company that sold you the Prius, and in most people's heads basically invented the phrase, fuel efficient. For a company like that to reach across the table and take its rival's most important piece of technology, something serious had to be going on behind the scenes. So how did the most self-reliant car maker in history end up here? To understand that, you have to understand the bet Toyota made and the man who made it. For years, the public face of Toyota's strategy was its chairman, Akio Toyoda, the grandson of the company's founder. And he was openly, famously skeptical of electric cars. While rival after rival announced they were going all electric, he kept arguing for what Toyota called a multi-pathway approach, spreading its bets across hybrids, hydrogen, and cleaner gas engines instead of betting everything on batteries. As recently as early 2024, he predicted that fully electric cars would top out at just 30% of the global market. Everything else, in his view, would stay hybrid or hydrogen, and you can see the logic. Toyota had sold tens of millions of hybrids. It practically owned that market. If the world was going to take its time shifting to electric, then Toyota's slow, careful approach was genius, and everyone sprinting toward pure electric vehicles was burning money on a future that hadn't arrived yet. But not everyone bought it. Environmental groups ranked Toyota near the bottom of the industry for its slow move to electric. Its own shareholders publicly criticized the company for falling behind. Toyota looked, to a lot of the world, like the stubborn giant refusing to read the room. Then China happened, and it happened fast. Back in 2020, electric and plug-in cars, what the Chinese call new energy vehicles, were still a small slice of the market there, but that slice kept doubling. By 2023, new energy vehicles made up about 35% of every passenger car sold in China, roughly 7.7 million cars in a single year. And it didn't stop. In some months, more than half of all new cars sold in China were electric or plug-in hybrid. Think about what that actually means. In the biggest car market on Earth, the gas engine went from the default to the underdog in about 4 years, and this shift wasn't driven by guilt or government mandates alone. Chinese electric cars got genuinely good, and they got cheap, and they got both of those things at a speed nobody outside China really believed was possible. Loaded with tech, priced under what a comparable gas car cost, and improving with every model year. For a Chinese buyer standing in a showroom, the electric car was often just the better deal. And that's a nightmare for a foreign brand like Toyota, whose whole reputation was built on being the sensible, reliable, better value choice. Suddenly, the local upstarts were beating it at its own game, on its own turf, and leading that charge was BYD. For the traditional car makers, this is where it really started to sting. In March of 2022, BYD did something no major automaker had ever done. It stopped building pure gasoline cars entirely. No more combustion engines, full stop. It went all in on batteries and plug-in hybrids, and it was rewarded for it, taking around a third of the entire Chinese new energy market for itself. So while Toyota was carefully protecting its hybrid empire, BYD was busy building the exact future Toyota had assumed was still years away. Suddenly, Toyota had a problem it could not hybrid its way out of. China is the world's largest car market, and Toyota sells a lot of cars there. If Chinese buyers were switching to electric this quickly and Toyota showed up with no competitive electric car to offer them, it risked far more than losing a little market share. It could get pushed out of the most important market in the world almost entirely. And building a truly competitive EV battery from scratch, the kind that's cheap enough, safe enough, and good enough to win, doesn't take months. It takes years. Toyota didn't have years, it had right now. And there's something almost poetic about who ended up knocking on whose door. This is Toyota, the company that taught the entire world how to manufacture cars, whose production system is studied in business schools everywhere, the gold standard other automakers spent decades trying to copy. For that Toyota to walk over to a Chinese company that wasn't even building cars 20 years earlier and asked to use its battery, the ground under the whole industry had to have completely shifted. And it had. So if you're Toyota and you need a world-class EV battery immediately, where do you go? You go to the company that already built the best one, and that's exactly what BYD had. Now, BYD didn't start out as a car company at all. It started in 1995 as a battery company making the little cells that powered phones and laptops. And it spent decades getting very, very good at batteries before it ever built a car. So when BYD finally turned its attention to electric vehicles, it came at the problem as a battery giant that had already spent decades mastering the single most important part, then learned to build cars around it. And that strength has a name, the Blade battery. To understand why Toyota wanted it, you have to understand the one thing that scares people most about electric cars: fire. Batteries store a huge amount of energy in a small space, and when they get damaged, some of them can overheat, catch fire, and burn in a way that's incredibly hard to put out. The industry even has a name for it: thermal runaway. It's the nightmare scenario, and in an electric car, getting the battery's safety right is pretty much the whole ballgame. Back in 2020, BYD wanted to prove its Blade battery was different, so it ran what's called a nail penetration test, and it filmed the whole thing. The idea is brutal and simple. You take a fully charged battery and you drive a steel nail straight through it, forcing a short circuit, basically the worst thing that can happen to a battery. Then you watch what it does. BYD lined up 3 batteries for the test. First, a standard nickel-based battery, the kind a lot of EVs used at the time. They stabbed it, and its surface temperature shot past 500 degrees Celsius and it burst into flames. Then a regular lithium iron phosphate battery. That one didn't catch fire, but its surface still climbed to somewhere between 200 and 400 degrees, hot enough to fry an egg placed on top of it. Then the Blade battery. They drove the nail through it, and it gave off no fire, no smoke, and its surface temperature barely moved, sitting between 30 and 60 degrees, cool enough to touch. That video did exactly what BYD wanted. It told the whole world that this Chinese company had cracked a safety problem the rest of the industry was still wrestling with. And that mattered far beyond engineering circles, because for regular buyers, the fear of an EV catching fire was one of the biggest things holding them back. Every viral video of an electric car burning in a driveway set the whole industry back a little. BYD had just handed itself an answer to the one question that scared people most, and it put that answer on video for anyone to watch. And the Blade battery wasn't only safe. It uses a chemistry called lithium iron phosphate, which is cheaper than the nickel and cobalt batteries a lot of rivals depended on, and it doesn't need cobalt at all, a material that's expensive and tangled up in serious ethical problems around how it's mined. BYD also designed the pack in a clever way, packing the long, thin, blade-shaped cells together so tightly that it fit far more battery into the same space than the older designs could. And it's built to last. BYD says the Blade battery can handle thousands of charge cycles, enough that the battery could realistically outlive the car it's bolted into. And this matters more than it might sound because the battery is the single most expensive part of an electric car. The founder of BYD, Wang Chuanfu, has pointed out that the battery alone can make up as much as 40% of an EV's total cost. So whoever controls the best, cheapest battery basically controls the economics of the whole car. It was cheaper, it was safer, it lasted longer, and it was already rolling off production lines at enormous scale. If you're Toyota and you need a battery that can win in China tomorrow, this is the shopping list. And BYD is the only store that has everything on it in stock. Trying to develop and manufacture something this good on your own would put you years behind. Buying it puts you in the game today. So Toyota bought the battery. Case closed, Toyota gave up, right? That's where almost everyone gets this story wrong. Look closer at how the BZ3 deal is actually structured, and it stops looking like surrender. Toyota didn't just hand BYD a check and slap a Toyota badge on a BYD car. It built a joint venture, a shared company where Toyota and BYD each bring what they're best at. BYD brings the battery, the electric motors, and years of hard-won EV experience. Toyota brings something BYD, for all its speed, is still building. Decades of engineering discipline, a global reputation for reliability that took generations to earn, quality control that's basically legendary, and a brand people around the world already trust with their lives. Think about what that trade actually gets Toyota. Overnight, it has a competitive electric car in China, running proven technology without spending the years and the billions it would take to develop a battery that good from zero. It gets to pair that battery with its own engineering and its own name, which means the car isn't just a rebadged BYD. Toyota's people reworked the battery structure, the cooling, the safety monitoring, and tuned the whole thing to Toyota's standards. The customer gets BYD's battery breakthrough wrapped in Toyota's reliability. And far from being a one-off act of desperation, Toyota kept leaning in, expanding its electric lineup in China rather than pulling back. This was Toyota regrouping for the next round of the fight. And this is the part people miss when they call this a defeat. Toyota didn't forget how to engineer. It made a cold, clear-eyed decision that in this exact moment, with the clock running, renting BYD's battery was smarter than losing years trying to reinvent it. That's not the move of a company that's given up. It's the move of a company buying itself time. And the question that should be forming in your head right now is, time for what? What is Toyota actually planning to do with the breathing room this deal just bought it? Because that's where this whole story flips. So what has Toyota been quietly building this whole time, while everyone assumed it was asleep at the wheel? Solid-state batteries. And if BYD's Blade battery is a genuine breakthrough, solid-state is the technology that could rewrite the rules for everybody, BYD included. Every EV battery you can buy today, including the Blade battery, uses a liquid or gel inside it to move energy around. Solid-state batteries swap that liquid for a solid material, and that one change unlocks a cascade of advantages. More energy packed into the same weight, which means far more range, much faster charging. Better safety, since there's no flammable liquid to catch fire. The energy density Toyota is chasing is roughly double what today's batteries manage, which is a huge leap in an industry that usually fights for tiny gains. It's been called the holy grail of electric cars for years, and the reason you're not driving one already is that it's fiendishly hard to actually manufacture. The cells cracked or wore out too fast to be practical. Plenty of companies have promised solid state. Almost none have delivered. Nissan, Honda, and BMW are all chasing it too, which tells you exactly how big the prize is. And the durability problem that held solid state back for everyone, the cells wearing out too fast, is the exact thing Toyota now claims it has solved. Real quick, if this breakdown is making the EV war make more sense than the headlines do, hit subscribe. This channel digs into China's technology and the strategy behind it every single week. Okay, back to Toyota's real plan. And this is where Toyota's decades of engineering come roaring back. Toyota says its first solid-state batteries are targeted for 2027 to 2028, and the numbers it's aiming for are the kind that make the whole industry sit up. Around 1,000 kilometers of range on a single charge. A charge from 10 to 80% in about 10 minutes, roughly the time it takes to grab a coffee. To get there, Toyota's been working for years with Japanese materials companies, Sumitomo Metal Mining on one side and Idemitsu Kosan on the other, to crack the manufacturing, and in late 2025 it got official approval in Japan to start production. The first cars to get this technology are expected to wear the Lexus badge, Toyota's luxury brand, where a high price tag can absorb the cost of something brand new. And Toyota has put real dates on all of this, not the usual someday promise the industry loves to make. Now, I'm going to be straight with you, the way this channel always tries to be, because that number needs a caveat. That 1,000 kilometer figure comes from China's testing cycle, which is famously generous. Real-world range, the kind you'd actually see on a highway, will be lower, and these are still engineering targets, not a car you can walk into a dealership and buy tomorrow. Batteries have a long history of sounding incredible in a press release and arriving late, so hold the number loosely, but even if you knock it down to something realistic, a Toyota that charges in 10 minutes and goes well past anything on the road today would be a serious weapon. And to bridge the gap until then, Toyota's also working on improved regular batteries, aiming for around 1,000 kilometers of range with a 20-minute charge, so it isn't standing still while it waits for the big leap. And now the whole strategy snaps into focus. Look at what Toyota actually set up. In the short term, it uses BYD's battery to stay alive and competitive in China right now, today, while it can't yet build something better on its own. In the long term, it's pouring its real effort into solid state, a technology that could leapfrog not just its Western rivals, but BYD itself. Toyota is using its competitor's greatest strength as a bridge, and it's building that bridge toward a place it hopes its competitor can't follow. It gets to compete today, keep its cash and its options, and pour its biggest bets into a technology it believes will matter more a few years from now. That is a long game hiding inside what looked like a white flag. So what does this actually tell us about where the car industry is heading? Toyota's move looks a lot less strange once you understand how completely the ground has shifted. Think about BYD's own story for a second, because it's almost hard to believe. Back in 2011, the man who runs Tesla, Elon Musk, was asked about BYD in a television interview, and he literally laughed. He said he didn't think they had a great product. At the time, that was almost the consensus view in the West, that these were cheap cars from a company nobody needed to take seriously. Fast forward to the end of 2025, and BYD sold more electric vehicles than any company on Earth, around 2.26 million battery electric cars in a single year, pushing past Tesla for the first time on an annual basis while Tesla's own sales actually fell. The company Musk laughed at is now the one everyone else is scrambling to catch. And the way it got there is the whole point. BYD makes almost everything itself. Roughly 3/4 of the parts in one of its cars are built in-house, from the batteries to the motors to the computer chips, across a network of more than 100 of its own factories. It went from making around 500,000 vehicles in 2017 to something like 4 million by 2024. That kind of growth is almost unheard of in this industry. It's what happens when a company turns itself into a pure manufacturing machine. It's building factories beyond China now too, including a new plant in Hungary to serve Europe, and its cars are showing up on roads from Southeast Asia to Latin America. And there's a genuinely strange wrinkle in all of this. The biggest EV maker on the planet barely sells a single car in the United States because steep tariffs keep it out. It conquered most of the world without ever really entering the American market. And it's worth remembering that back in 2008, one of the few outsiders who saw all of this coming was Warren Buffett, whose company took an early stake in BYD when almost nobody in the West knew the name. And Toyota is far from the only one doing this math. All across the industry, companies that spent a century insisting on building everything themselves are quietly turning to Chinese firms for the one piece they still can't match: the battery. When the best and cheapest battery technology in the world is coming out of China, clinging to pride starts to look like a very expensive habit. The car makers that make it through the next decade will probably be the ones willing to do exactly what Toyota just did. That's the real lesson buried in this deal, and it reaches far beyond cars. For 100 years, the winning move in the car business was to own everything yourself. Build your own engines, control your own factories, need no one. Toyota was the master of that game. But the pace of change now is so fast that no single company, not even the best one in the world, can be the best at everything at the same time. The advantage now is a different kind of speed. How fast you can spot where you're falling behind, drop the ego, and grab the best tool on the table even if a rival built it, then use it to buy time for your own move. Toyota looked at a rival that was beating it, admitted the problem out loud, and used that very rival to stay in the fight. So the next time you see a headline screaming that Toyota surrendered to China, remember what actually happened here. The most self-reliant carmaker alive looked at its rival's battery, and instead of pretending it wasn't losing, it borrowed the weapon to survive today and quietly built its own for tomorrow. And that rival's real superpower was never only the battery, it was the sheer scale of how BYD builds inside those enormous, heavily automated mega factories in cities like Xi'an and Shenzhen that look less like car plants and more like small cities. If you want to see the machine that forced Toyota's hand, step inside BYD's mega factory in the video on screen right now.